Well, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Danny G, and I'll be your host here. Well, I just wanted to share my story with you today, so you kind of know where I come from and know where I'm going on this crazy adventure of life. I call my YouTube channel Danny G Adventures because I am an adventurous person. I love to go on different types of adventures every day. I've traveled to Central America. I've traveled to different parts of the United States. I've traveled all over Timbuktu and back, they would say. So, today I share my story with you. I'm going to start at the age of 13 because that's what I remember the most. At the age of 13, I was in a very hard situation of life. I was being bounced around from house to house. We were living out of a car, and when I say we, I was meaning my sister, my mom, and I. From house to house. We were living in my mom's car, and there was no real stability in our lives at my age of 13 years old. We were homeless. We were surrounded by drugs, and I made a decision at that point in time in my life that it was no longer acceptable for my sister and I to live in those conditions. So one day we were in Echo, Oregon, and I told my sister, pack your stuff, we're leaving. We're done, we're out of here. What triggered that point was I didn't have a ride to football practice the next day. So I told myself that I was going to make it to football practice that next day. So my sister and I, we packed up our stuff, which wasn't very much, a couple backpacks, and we walked to the nearest gas station, and we explained to those people what our situation was. We were being bounced around from house to house, no stability, we haven't eaten, and we wanted a ride to our friend's house. So fast forward about a week later, we were put into foster care, my sister and I. We went through the foster care system for a year. During that year, again, we were bounced from house to house, one foster parent to another in the state of Oregon. The state of Oregon decided it was in our best interest to go and live with our fathers. My sister and I, we have different fathers. My sister moved to Tennessee. I moved to Florida. Our connection broke at that point. Our relationship broke at that point. So I never really had a relationship with my father. As I was in Oregon, he was in Florida. So I pretty much was shipped off to a place that I knew nothing about. I didn't know much about my father. I didn't know the living conditions he was living. I didn't know his mental health status at that time. So when I showed up to Florida, all was well. Everybody greeted me. They made me feel at home. Well, we were living in a 3-bedroom house at my grandparents'. My dad had his own room. My grandparents had their own room. My cousin David had his own room. I was left in the living room. All throughout the night, people would come and go. all throughout the day, people would come and go. That was not really a stable environment for me. So what did I do? I turned to the streets. I was running amok up and down the streets, in and out of the house all throughout the night, because that's what I seen when I showed up there. At the age of 13, I didn't know any better, because I was already being bounced around from house to house, watching people come and go. So I didn't really know any better. All I wanted to do was just fit in. Well, I started going to high school, Jones High School in Orlando, Florida. Everything was good there. You know, I was one of 4 white people in the school. It was mainly black people, colored people. But I made the best of it. There wasn't a lot of good influence in that year and a half that I was in Florida living with my father. I got in trouble for shooting homeless people with the BB gun. I watched drugs being dealed on the streets. I endured houses being raided from the police. And I was just 15 years old, not knowing a difference. My grandparents from Tennessee came down to visit me. They evaluated the situation I was living in. They said, Daniel, if you keep going down this path, you're going to be in jail like the rest of them. You're going to be in prison like the rest of them. I decided that was not the life I wanted to live. So again, at the age of 15 years old, I was uprooted out of what I thought was a home to live somewhere else, who I never knew anybody, who I didn't know anybody in the area. I didn't even really have a relationship with my grandparents on my mom's side. I knew of them, but there wasn't a established relationship there. When I went there, I felt stability. I had my own room, had my own place, had my own money, had my own job. I had a slight sense of stability. Now, living with my grandparents in Tennessee, I learned a lot. I learned how to work hard. I learned the importance of money. My grandpa also taught me how to be an entrepreneur. He taught me how to make a penny into a dime into $1, and $1 into $5. We worked there. That's one thing I remember from the age of 15 to 17 years old, is we worked a lot. We were hauling scrap metal, working at the auction house. But that instilled in my life at the age of 15, between the ages of 15 and 17, a strong work ethic. So I appreciate my grandfather for that. I don't recall very much of what happened, but for some reason, at the age of 17, one night, I got into an argument or something, and I ended up running away from my grandparents in Tennessee. I went and stayed at my friend's house until I could get my money out of the bank to buy a plane ticket. Where was I to go? My mom was bouncing around from house to house. My sister, I didn't have a relationship with her. So the place that I looked for, I reached out to my brother, and he said, sure, you can come live with me back in Oregon. I said, okay, fair enough. I caught the next plane out. Knoxville to Portland. Or sorry, Knoxville to Seattle. I met my brother there, which him and I didn't have much of a relationship at that time. He was living on his own. I was living on my own. But he welcomed me into his humble abode, where I found myself in the living room again. I started going to school, but I brought the work ethic and the hustle that I learned in Florida, and the work ethic that I learned from my grandfather. I brought it to Oregon. I got a job at the local gas station, pumping gas, but that just wasn't enough for me. So I started to learn how to turn a nickel into a dime into $1, and $1 into $5. I started selling marijuana from the gas station. As I was pumping gas, people would come and ask me, they're like, hey, do you know where to get some marijuana? And I said, yeah, sure. Give me a second. I got it, I got it stashed behind the cooler over there. I'll get you served right up. So for about a year, I was working at the gas station selling marijuana and, trying to go to school. But I ended up dropping out of school because I was more focused on the negative things of life than the positive things of life. During that time, I was just, trying to make ends meet. Had a couple girlfriends here, had a couple girlfriends there. Living with my brother, which I was very grateful for, by the way. Running amok, being a, adolescent teenager, I would say. One day I made a very irresponsible decision. I decided it was funny or comical or a thrill to break into a place and steal a bunch of stuff. That day will forever change my life. We robbed the place for over almost $9,000 worth of stuff. We thought we got away with it. We were so happy. We started selling all the stuff, making a nickel into a dime into $1, and $1 into $5, which all I knew. But one day the police came and they said, we know you did it. We got evidence you did it. We have some of the stuff that you gave away as Christmas presents. I said, you know what? I'll take my punishment. So I spent some time in jail. But I learned a lot there. I still took the mentality of turning a nickel into a dime into $1, $1 into $5.